This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 355 for the week of February 2nd, 2014. What up, hey-os? Welcome to a Kanzenshuu,
the podcast,
an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site.
Kanzenshuu.
That's right, we cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit, the entertaining. What up, my name is Mike, VegettoEX, here on this fine, the large American football game day, non-trademarked phrase here with
the big game.
The big game. I think that's probably also trademarked by this point.
I don't think it is, because that's what everybody uses, because I can't use the actual trademarked phrase.
So we all collectively agree. Mr. Hujio, what up, dude?
Oh, it's a fantastic Sunday. And my son's asleep.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm down here with you.
Excellent. So we got Mike, we got Heath. Julian would have loved to have joined the show and in fact asked me about it earlier, but said, you know what? Gonna have to wait until later, so it'll just be Heath and
because
I. So
it's 5:40 a.m. his time.
So we will take advantage of all of his hard work and talk about it.
Don't we always?
Pretty much. Whatever Jake does, whatever Julian does, you and I come on, we talk about it. Heath, it's a big day. It's, the sports thing, but we just put up a big interview. It's an interview. Normally you'd say it's a Q&A session, but
it's kind of both.
10 questions to me kind of feels like that's almost full-length interview, right?
I would say so, but then it also says question, answer.
I know. So this Q&A session, this interview, is between a one Ms. Naho Ooishi of Dragon Ball SD fame, along with a one Mr. Akira Toriyama, of course, the original author of Dragon Ball. This interview is in the new Saikyo Jump, which is officially out on Japanese store shelves on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, in the Super Kanzenban of episode of Bardock, which is included as a part of that magazine. Does that all make sense? Have you followed it here?
So far, I'm with you.
All right, I hope so. Mine's on its way. I don't know when I'll get it, but
I always find it weird when Saikyo Jump or V Jump come out with booklets.
Yeah.
Because then it's really weird how they try to fit them inside.
I know. You can never tell. Is it going to just be rubber banded on top like some have been? Is it going to be an insert inside? Will it be perforated so you can take it out? We never know. It's always a surprise. So that is coming out this week. That's kind of going to be the meat of our, not so much topic, it's kind of news. We're going to roll that all together. And we're kind of pushing back a couple other topics. Battle of Z, which I've spent a few hours with, and I have to keep convincing myself to keep playing, and then I'm like, well, maybe I'll just go play Final Fantasy for a little bit instead.
How dare you?
That's been my weekend. Like, I'm probably half an hour into a Dragon Ball game. My reward is 3 hours of Final Fantasy 14. So that's what's going on there. Heath, we really haven't done much in terms of a news show in a while. It's been a little quiet, which has been nice. So we're going to do a little catch up on the news that we have, again, which is kind of just some general stuff along with our news/topic of the interview here. And then we have a backlog of questions that we hadn't gotten to. So that is my plan.
If it's your plan, that's my plan.
All right. So I guess let's just get going to the news. Heath, let's start with this story of Battle of Gods reportedly heading to 26 countries. This is a story that had actually been out there for quite a bit and just hadn't gotten around to it. You dove into this a little bit. What's the background on this? And is it actually news or is it just confirming what we kind of already know?
More or less, it's confirming what we already knew, which it was intended for a global release. That's what we're going to see. That's what we're going to get. And we assume it's coming to North America at some point.
We're left out so far.
Yep. It's already been released in a few countries. It's slated for a few more countries. Italy, Hong Kong. Some places have already gotten a home release even. So
yes, we were talking about that maybe a couple of weeks ago. The Hong Kong release made it out by the end of the year. And then I think it was the Taiwanese release. Just came out.
Yep. So we're getting there. Maybe North America will catch up one of these days, but...
And it's the same old story where there's no announcement. We don't know. No one said anything. We're just going to assume it's Fox holding things up for some reason. My theory is too big, too little, kind of weird place Dragon Ball is for them.
Yeah. And then are they trying to work things out more with Toei, with Funimation as an in-between? We're not exactly sure what's going on there. But the article that this actually came from was quite interesting. It just looked I don't want to say in depth, but it took a very quick glance at animation, not only within Japan, but globally, and how anime has just become this huge global phenomenon, and how it relates to adults and children, and how children's shows seem to be the ones that thrive globally more so than adult-centric shows.
That makes sense.
So it was kind of a neat little read. It was kind of weird, though, because they interviewed Kozo Morishita, who was a producer for pretty much all of Dragon Ball. And so everything came back to Toei Animation and how good Toei is. And of course, he's going to pimp them up because he works for them. He's the vice president. So what else are you going to do? It would have been nice to see a little bit for other companies, but this is who they interviewed. So I guess it's good for us. It's Dragon Ball related.
Yeah, kind of self-congratulatory little interview comments.
Very much so.
All right. So Battle of Gods, they're still working on bringing it places. We'll certainly let you know if and when we hear anything for the rest of the English-speaking world. So I guess we'll move on. Viz has been doing a great job showing off the print version of the full-color comics that they are putting out. I believe that first one's actually due out this Tuesday. I should have it Tuesday.
I'm really wanting to pick these up just based on the pictures they tweet out. If that's the actual size of the releases, I mean...
It looks great. It looks great.
Yeah.
And I think the most important point that everyone's picked up on is, oh, thank goodness they changed the font. For whatever reason, the font in the digital weekly Shonen Jump, Optima Nova Condensed, is what it is. Apparently, Shueisha was the ones who wanted it there, and it's terrible. It's so different from everything else that's in there, and you can tell just how different.
Especially everything Viz has ever released has pretty much just been in their standard font.
Yeah, and that's what the print edition will be. I'm so great. Have you been picking up on all the subtle little jabs that Viz has been making?
Over the years, even. But yes, it seems like whoever is running their Twitter account has a pretty good grasp on what's been going on. Within North America.
I'm not sure who's in charge of the Twitter account right now, if it's one person or if it's multiple people, but Viz does have someone, is it Charlene, that recently went to Viz from Funimation? So there are folks at Viz who know the ins and outs of what went on at Funimation in marketing and know all of the franchises. I think the most recent jab was something like, if there's any re-release of Dragon Ball to pick up this year, this is the one. It's like, that's a very clear understanding of what the market situation is right now, and I approve of these playful jabs at each other. I mean, obviously it's playful. There's no malice there, but kind of agree at the same time with them.
I'd love to see a Funimation comeback. Just kind of.
Yeah, well,
yours isn't oversaturated. Ha, wait.
I don't know. I can't even come up with anything. So we'll move on. Dragon Ball Hero stuff, Victory Mission was in V-Jump. You know, we got the chapter synopsis. You can check that out. More Evil Dragon stuff.
It's really become almost standard what they've been doing.
It's a real series now. I mean, this most recent chapter was 16 pages. I mean, it's a real chapter now. It's real manga from Toyotaro.
And then Julian goes, seriously, 16 pages?
Oh, Jesus. He
was having enough problems keeping up with 3.
So there's that. Older Gotenks getting Super Saiyan 3 in Heroes. I mean, we saw that coming a mile away. It's not like he couldn't already hit Super Saiyan 3, but little additional design stuff there. So then I guess we have to move to the sad news of Ichiro Nagai has passed away. The voice actor for Sudu Senin and Karin in Dragon Ball has sadly passed away. He was 82 years old. The story here is that he was recording narration for a TV program and failed to check out of his hotel that morning, and they actually found him in his hotel room, in his bathtub, no less, unresponsive, and he was pronounced dead. This is another one of those voices that, unbelievably, it's not one of those booming voices. And in Dragon Ball, he played these two different roles. I mean, Sudu Senin was an evil character, and Karin was a good character, but kind of devious at the same time. He just kind of had that tone to him, like just a fun, quirky old man, but respectable at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously he played a ton of other characters in a ton of other series.
He was very well known throughout the anime community in Japan.
I mean, Dragon Ball was really good with this, where if there was a prolific voice actor, if they didn't have a main role in Dragon Ball, they had one of the secondary character roles. I mean, pretty much everyone from that generation of actors showed up in Dragon Ball, from the older generation, then kind of that next upcoming generation, folks of like Mayumi Tanaka's generation. Pretty much every major name showed up in Dragon Ball in some capacity. The only one I can think of was Takehito Koyasu. Is one of like the only people that never showed up in Dragon Ball.
It was, especially early on in Dragon Ball, when it first started to premiere, they would bring on a lot of cameo voice actors who were had main roles in other series, and they'd come in and just play the most minor character for one episode.
And of course, I'm sure we're both thinking of Megumi Hayashibara, who came in to play the blind boy in the Boo arc. And I remember my fan subs at the time, it was like this big block that said, Megumi Hayashibara is the blind boy. Like, really? You had to point that out in the middle of the episode? You couldn't just save it for later?
Could do that at the end.
So, yes, unfortunately, we have lost Nagai, and this is not Dragon Ball related specifically, so we didn't cover it on the site, but since we're talking about it at the same time, we did unfortunately also lose Masako Nozawa's husband over this last week. So it's been, he was a voice actor as well. Most recently, was he in Bleach, I think it was?
Yes.
Or One Piece? Bleach and or One Piece? I'm not sure.
Probably both, but I know for sure he was in Bleach.
Right. So it's a very sad week for this right now.
And I guess he had been battling with something. I can't remember if it was cancer related or not.
He had been
But apparently
sick,
it wasn't very abrupt. They kind of knew it was coming.
So no real way to recover from that conversation. So we just kind of have to move on. We could talk about Bardock stuff, but we're really going to hold on to that for kind of the main meat here. Let's talk a little bit of Jaco here. Heath, of course, Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, the 11 chapter. Yeah, I don't understand why they did the 10+1. I mean, it really was chapter 11.
I know. It just sounded cool. Something different.
It was a fun little countdown.
Yeah.
Jaco, which debuted in Weekly Jump last year, 11 chapters. Shueisha pretty much spoiled the surprise of saying, yes, it's going to be Dragon Ball related. It indeed turned into a Dragon Ball prequel by the end. Jaco is receiving a voiced comic, or if you will, a vomic. Worst title ever. Absolutely.
I know.
Worst.
But they've had them for years now.
They have. Yeah. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, that's just a motion comic. We have lots of those. Now, I checked out their Vomit website, and to be fair, I didn't check out a whole bunch of stuff. I just started watching one of the Naruto ones. It's not the type of motion comic that I think of when I think of things like we have the Astonishing X-Men one, is knowing who my wife is. Obviously, that's a thing that we own, where it's rather well animated. And I know the motion comics, they've gotten much better over the years, where it was kind of still early on, maybe just some limb movements, and Astonishing is pretty much a cartoon by the time you're really done breaking it down. These vomics that I've seen are not really that. It's kind of like the dialogue bubbles pop on screen and it kind of pans across things. It's really
it's very still animation.
Yeah.
Effects.
So I think a voiced comic is a better title than a motion comic.
But I don't think they really needed to combine them into one word.
It's awful. It's Japan, lols.
Yes.
So Jaco is getting one. This is in conjunction with the TV program Saikyomi, not Saikyomi. Maybe there's a pun in there that I don't understand. Because there's Saikyo, so Saikyomi, I don't know. Julian's the one who knows this stuff. Saikyomi Janbang. That's starting February 6th online. It's going to have 4 installments that you'll be able to check out. We have voices for Jaco, Omori, An, the newscaster, Katayude, and a policewoman. A lot of people are like, there's no voice for Tights there. So one theory is, well, it's only going to be 4 installments, so we might not get that far. Without spoiling too many things, I could also see them just saying that An and Tights are the same voice actress, if you know what I mean.
And they do tend to do that a lot, and when they do, they only list the one credit.
Yeah, I mean, Tights is the main one. But
yeah,
if you know Jaco, you know what we're getting at there. And I believe all but one of them belongs to the Ken production agency that Julian was able to find. So I very much look forward to checking that out this week on February 6th. That'll start on Shueisha's Vomit website. So let's see. We got a whole bunch of J-Stars Victory Versus updates. A lot of stuff we were trying to catch up on.
So exciting.
Lots of characters. I mean, Frieza's in the game now. We were talking about this for a while. Will they introduce some of the villain characters? I mean, we had the rivals, and yes, rivals are villains. But when you think of villains, at least by the end of the series, you don't really think of Vegeta as one of the villain characters. But the actual villains have been introduced so far. We've got Frieza, we've got Madara Uchiha from Naruto, we've got my main man Makoto Shishio from Kenshin, and then we've got Red Dog there from One Piece, the Fleet Admiral Akainu.
This game is looking better and better.
You know, I'm remaining cautiously optimistic. I'm super psyched that here we are in January and they're still revealing characters. We were really concerned for a while, like, oh, that's it.
For a while, it was very steady.
Yeah.
And then they kind of dropped off, and then there'd be one big reveal, and then there'd be nothing.
Right. I got to say, though, that occasionally some of the ones they reveal are just... he's a support character. Now, I've read, I own, I should say, 3 volumes of D. Grayman of the manga. I just never really got into it. I think I checked it out because I liked him in Jump Ultimate Stars, Alan, that is. It's like, oh, maybe I should check it out. So they got me that way. And like, I would want to play as him, but he's just a support character. So that kind of sucks. I feel like if you're going to put in all the effort to make the character models and movements and all that stuff, let me play as him. It's kind of bummer.
Maybe they'll surprise you.
I don't know.
But I doubt it.
I expect no surprises. So this day, I know a lot of people were psyched about some of the Bleach and the Yu Yu Hakusho and the Hunter x Hunter character there. I think the Hunter x Hunter character is support only. Hisoka, I don't know him. I need to start watching Hunter x Hunter. I've been trying to catch up on some of these shows, some of the new characters that have been announced. I know a lot of the older ones, but I feel like before the game comes out, I want to start watching a little bit of Hunter x Hunter because I don't know Gon at all. And I feel like
I need to catch up on so many series.
Yeah, time would be wonderful. If
yes, it would.
Donate time to us. Raise your hands into the air and donate time to the Kanzenshuu staff. So we got Frieza. Yay, more Dragon Ball. I'm pretty psyched about that. That's cool. And the best part is they're spelling his name right on the site.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it is. Although people are saying that Hisoka is spelled totally wrong and weird. So I don't know. Maybe those fans are getting boned now. We got Frieza right again.
You're just happy that Nakao's going to be there.
I am. I'm psyched. Oh, and Shishio is so good. His voice actor is awesome. I forget who it is. I love Shishio. All right. So tied in with that, the theme song of that game, which we've known about for a while, Fighting Stars, which is going to be performed by a one Mr. Hironobu Kageyama alongside Hiroshi Kitadani of One Piece fame and Akira Kushida of right now mainly Toriko, but he had done Kinnikuman in the past, although Kinnikuman is not announced for J-Stars yet. The lyrics for that game were printed, was it last month's V-Jump? I think it was. So Julian has translated the full, what appears to be the full song lyrics, so you can check that out. That's not so much news as it is, well, check it out, and that sure is shonen.
It is so shonen, I can't even. It oozes shonen. It really does. Especially between the 3 of them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I have to imagine you checked out the latest promotional video for the game that starts with the 3 of them. Kushida's looking really old. And even Kageyama
I feel like they've all decided to try to mess with their faces in some way.
It's funny, it's sad, it's endearing. It's like, oh, you're so old now, but you're so shonen in spirit. I appreciate it.
Hey, that's all you need sometimes.
Right. So, all right, we have a couple last things here. I mean, getting back to Jaco, this is going to tie in with what we're going to talk about, but the collected volume of the manga is in fact coming out in April. It was originally supposed to be out in January. The last chapter in Weekly Jump said it would be, and that disappeared entirely, and now it's back on for April, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Real briefly, Ultimate Gohan is joining Zenkai Battle Royale. A lot of people misrepresenting the story. At the bottom of the page, you see Spopovich and Babidi. Now, what it actually says is, but that's not all. Some all too unexpected guys also announced their joining of the battle. Actually, Julian translated it as they're joining the battle, but I thought that would look funny and as if we meant to write the wrong there. So I kind of added the word
The first time I read it, I thought it was the
right. So I asked him, like, is it okay if I put the word of here? He's like, yeah, that still makes grammatical sense. It's still accurate. So that's kind of inside baseball, Kanzenshuu translation stuff. Anyway, so it does not say specifically that both are joining, or for example, if Spopovich is joining and Babidi will be kind of like his support character alongside him. All we know is that these two characters will be showing up in the game at some point
in some way,
some capacity, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't even name them. It just shows their picture. I mean, you know who they are. It's not like the silhouette things in the past where it's like, who is this mysterious older brother joining the match?
And then they make it super obvious.
Right. It actually shows
Like
them.
the
But
outline.
that's the kind of thing where we try to make this very, very clear to you. This is what's actually said. This is what's actually announced. And a lot of people like to put things up and can't read what they're putting up and kind of run wild with things. But that is what's going on right there. Heath, this was a story that we kind of decided on doing.
It was
almost last second, and then it turned into my entire afternoon, and you hopped on.
It turned into both of our afternoons.
I'm like, please help. I need extra numbers here. So I want to make it very clear that this entire story is not really a story. It's kind of an explanation of facts at this moment. If you would like to derive something from it, you are free to.
It's pretty much up to you. It's very open to interpretation.
We wanted to talk about what is going on with Toriko, which is important because what is going on with Dragon Ball Kai? How do those relate to each other? So here's what we can tell you right now. I can confirm Kanzenshuu. I'm going to put this as a Kanzenshuu as an entity can indeed confirm firsthand the continuation of Dragon Ball Kai into the Majin Buu story arc is real. We know this. In addition to what Tanaka has said and what others have said. This is kind of an accepted fact right now. I don't think any of us needs to say anything else about that. Yes, it's coming. However, when is it coming? How is it coming? This does tie back to Mayumi Tanaka's blog posts. Now, this was back in November 2012. Tanaka put up a blog post saying, hey, we're doing more Kai. It's going into the Buu arc. And very specifically, she said, it won't be aired in Japan, but overseas, Dragon Ball Kai is continuing. And then she said at the end, we talked about how we want it to air in Japan too. So it seemed to be, yes, Kai was continuing, primarily going to be for the international markets. They want to provide an uncut Japanese language track to translate from, provide on a potential home release. It makes sense that they have to produce something for it to be released elsewhere. And that was pretty quiet for basically a year until she put up another picture. It was really a gathering of folks for Masako Nozawa's birthday, but also she said, we're doing Dragon Ball recording. And when you looked at that picture, you saw the voice of Majin Buu, the replacement voice of Mr. Satan, and specifically Yukio Nagasaki, who is the sound director for Dragon Ball Kai.
Yep.
It's like, well, what's going on here?
She pretty much just spelled it out.
Right. And then we had Toshio Furukawa, the voice of Piccolo. He's like, hey, I'm recording too. Here's me alongside Yuji Mitsuya, the voice of Kaioshin. Okay, we get it, guys.
We've had the pleasure of meeting.
Right. You're continuing. It's the Buu arc. But it was still, we don't know where or how this is coming. So this is where Toriko comes in. Toriko took Dragon Ball Kai's time slot, where it used to be on the Dream 9 block. Heath, Kai started April 2009 at 9 a.m.?
April 5th, 2009 at 9 a.m. and then One Piece followed at 9:30.
Right. And that aired through the end of the Cell arc. We ran into the Tohoku earthquake, the tsunami, that major disaster preempted what was the final episode of Kai that came out on the home release, that 98th episode. So here we are. Toriko took over the time slot. The rumor going around is that Toriko is going away from this time slot and Dragon Ball Kai will be taking over its time slot, kind of taking it back. Heath, what is the evidence right now that may not even point to, but perhaps suggest this is the case?
Besides, like my cousin told me?
Well, yes. Besides, my uncle knows Toriyama and had lunch with him yesterday, and Toriyama made Dragon Ball Kai.
Well, it came to light basically about mid-November. A lot of fans of Toriko started noting that the pace of the anime series had greatly picked up. They were starting to cover about 2 to 3 chapters an episode, where previously they'd have large filler arcs or maybe cover 1 chapter, if that. So it seemed like it was kind of trending towards we're trying to close this out. Then we went and decided, well, if it really is ending, maybe we should look at how the ratings are doing, because a lot of times not only do they look at merchandise sales, but also how is it just doing on TV? Are people even watching this?
Well, it's definitely both. And I don't want people to say, well, you're hypocrites because you said that Dragon Ball Kai ended because of merchandise. We didn't specifically say that. We said that's likely one of the large contributing factors, but ratings, well, yeah, it does apply.
And at the time, it mostly made sense just because Dragon Ball Kai would be at a point where it could end. You know, it was a good stopping point.
Yeah.
And you can't blame Toei Animation for saying, we want to get something fresh, something new in our archive, in our library that we can use. Because at that time, they were just using a recycled show. But this was, you know, the hot new shit that was coming out. And the manga was doing extremely well in Weekly Shonen Jump. Popularity polls were way up. So now was definitely the time for them to jump on Toriko. But as we're seeing, a lot of the ratings are going down. For the most part, it's never topped Kai in the ratings category.
Yeah, you know, you pulled together these stats. You'd actually done this a couple days earlier. I think the best correlation,
very nice spreadsheet.
Yes, not correlation. The best comparison to see here is really comparing highs and averages. The average for Dragon Ball Kai was a 9.4. The high for Toriko was that same 9.4.
And these, we should note that these TV ratings that we have listed are the average household ratings. So it combines all age groups. I know at the beginning when Toriko first came out, Toei listed out a lot of TV ratings to show how well it was doing. And you could see that as you got older, the numbers were dropping. But for kids from 4 to 12, Toriko was doing very, very well.
And we know Dragon Ball has always done, and especially with Kai, cross age groups. That's specifically what they wanted to do with Kai. We've talked about this so many times. Which
is kind of why I have the feeling that for Dragon Ball Kai, that's why a lot of those numbers are higher, because you're reaching older generations, new generations at the same time.
So we got those rating comparisons there, and I mean, we always talk about the financial state of Dragon Ball as in terms of licensing and merchandise and stuff. Toriko's just not doing anything for Toei.
It was at the beginning. When it first came out, they got a lot of new licenses. You know, a lot of people jumped on board to get the hot new thing. And basically ever since then, probably the first 2 quarters when Toriko was out, it's just steadily been dropping. And it's gotten to the point that as of the most recent fiscal report that Toei released, Toriko's basically not on there at all for anything. So not only are they not making money within Japan, they're definitely not making any off of it outside.
And that's what we pulled it back to again, was the overseas licensing. We think that's really important to show. And for a few years, Dragon Ball was on top because it is that they call it this for a reason. It's an evergreen franchise internationally. It will always continue to do well. And until you get to the point, I think, where Toei's licensing out Strong World, and then all of a sudden One Piece starts taking the top spots.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dropping Dragon Ball down to number 2. But yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball always does well licensing internationally. And that's not, again, we don't want to confuse correlation with causation here. At the same time, if Dragon Ball is going to continue to do well licensing overseas, maybe it makes sense to go back to Kai. And even if it wasn't this runaway success in Japan, you can still make money off of it.
Oh, most definitely. And a lot of people have even expanded upon this theory a little bit more, saying, well, maybe Kai will come back, finish out, and then Toriko will have just been on hiatus and it will come back, depending on how well the series goes, to kind of give it a break.
People are saying that, oh, it's catching up to the manga, so you want to give it a break. But at the same time, Heath, these kind of shonen shows, it's not like other shows. Look at something like Attack on Titan, which, you know, ran for its 24, 26 episodes, whatever, and clearly that'll come back at some point. These types of shonen, very specifically the Shueisha Weekly Shonen Jump series, they don't do those in blocks. They do them as this starts and this runs indefinitely till we run it into the ground.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, that's every shonen series has always been that way for the most part until it starts to not do well. Even if the manga series is still in serialization, they'll just kind of end it.
And I want to make that really clear because Attack on Titan is one, but look at Hajime no Ippo, which is on its 3rd TV series. It's such a long running series, not a Shueisha property. Shueisha's business model for this stuff is very specifically start it and it just doesn't end until either the author ends the series or, like Kenshin, that anime just got ran into the ground so terribly. It was a train wreck, not to be confused with Runaway Train episode of Kenshin.
I mean, you can almost even look at Dragon Ball as an example of how well it did, that even when the series ended, it was still so popular.
Right, yeah.
That they said, oh, fuck it. We are just going to make up our own series. So if something usually comes to an end like that, and I don't count Dragon Ball Kai in that category since it is technically just a recycled showing of what they've previously shown.
Yeah, it was so different.
Yeah, it's like something that no one has ever really done, especially with airing it on TV.
Right.
Yep, it is its own beast.
James just left a comment on the, we're doing this live right now. As long as there are Mexican children, there will always be money to be made off Dragon Ball. Never has a truer statement been made.
Yes, especially if they include the Spanish dub.
Right. So I think, oh, and you know what, Heath, we also have to mention, this is what we said, one of the most damning pieces of evidence. The Cardass series for Toriko is ending.
That's really what prompted this entire thing.
It's like, you don't stop merchandise for an ongoing series unless there's fire somewhere.
I mean, they don't stop any. There were Dragon Ball Cardass games when Dragon Ball wasn't even on TV.
I know.
It just continued. So
for them to stop doing this line of Toriko merchandise is like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay, then.
Is serious. So
that's do with that information as you will. We will stay on top of it.
Nothing has been confirmed as of yet, and just because Toriko ends does not necessarily mean that Kai is coming back on TV.
Right.
We don't know that.
And we're not saying that Toriko is ending, and we're not saying that Kai is taking its time slot. These are just the facts surrounding the situation that may be a likely scenario.
And the way everything lines up, you can kind of lean one way or the other.
With that all said, Heath, I think we should turn our attention right now to the March issue of Saikyo Jump, one of the latest compilation magazine anthology things that Shueisha put out. It started in 2011? Was that the 4 quarterly issues in 2011?
Yes, because then in 2012 it went to monthly.
Right, to monthly, and then Dragon Ball SD has been throughout the entire thing. So the next issue is due out Tuesday, the 4th of February, I believe that is, in Japan. It includes a reprint of Episode of Bardock, which was 3-chapter manga by Naho Ooishi, who herself does Dragon Ball SD. This was a new story that she had done in V-Jump, 3 chapters, the June, July, and August 2011 issues of V-Jump. It did get a complete reprint later in V-Jump, right? Or was it in Saikyo Jump? I think it was in a later V-Jump.
It was in V-Jump.
And that got the 2 bonus pages, all that. It has not been released outside of V-Jump, and this new Saikyo Jump comes with what they're calling a Super Kanzenban reprint of Episode of Bardock. So that includes, well, all 3 chapters, 6 pages of SD related content, and then a new 10-question Q&A with Akira Toriyama. It is Naho Ooishi asking the questions and then Toriyama answering the questions. Now, this started getting a lot of hype a day or 2 ago with some not so wonderfully translated answers here. Julian, thankfully, was able to go through and translate the whole thing, pull him away from his family. So people appreciate that. Oh, poor dude.
Oh, if you could have seen all of us behind the scenes while all this was going on, I'm sure it would have been quite comical.
It's a revolving door of time zones and news drafts and all sorts of
because we got it first in the morning. Yeah. And then I worked with it, got most of it typed up. But then by the time Julian woke up, then we pretty much had the whole thing. So then we had to start over.
And all the meanwhile, I'm working on the news draft and I get to steal the byline on everything.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
So we have the whole thing up now. Heath, 2 of the biggest points are the ones we addressed in the news post. These are the ones getting spread around, I think, more than anything else. And again, I want to be really careful as we break these down because there's a lot of misconstruing that can happen, especially with the Vegeta one in particular. The main thing here is, well, Toriyama has decided to assign a name and almost an entire background history to Goku's mother.
And he's drawn her.
He has. So Gine will be showing up in the bonus pages of Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, which is, again, due out in April. Now, Heath, Gine, very, very easy, very, very obvious, classic Toriyama-style pun here.
I'm really surprised it was so straightforward, but I'm not really.
No, I'm not surprised at all.
I feel like as his career has progressed, he's basically just thrown out whatever name he thinks is easy.
He's looking down the list.
It just popped into his head, and he's just like, yeah, I feel like he has a list of vegetables just lying around.
Right, what haven't I used yet? And what hasn't Toible kind of gone with, too? You got to be really careful. But you also have to think about that Toriyama did things like Onio in Nekomajin Z, so he's got to be careful about his own stuff. Anyway, Gine, very simple. Reverse the syllables, negi, which is, it's depending on where you live, it's kind of referred to as different things. I know it as both green onions and scallions, but it's also referred to as spring onions. What do you call it out there in ye Midwest yonder across America?
Scallions.
You call it scallions out there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of half and half with me, green onions and scallions.
Yeah. I mean, I go either way. I believe in most of our grocery stores out here, they are listed as green onion. But most people call them scallions.
Gotcha. So that's her name. Why don't I actually read here Toriyama's answer to Ooishi? It's actually a couple things that we're combining into one quote. You can read the whole thing. So Toriyama says, as for her appearance and such, you'll find out if you read the bonus comic in the collected release of Jaco the Galactic Patrolman. Her name was Gine. And a long time ago, she fought on a 4-person team together with Bardock. Gine had a gentle personality and wasn't cut out as a warrior, being repeatedly saved from danger by Bardock. At that time, a special emotion was born between them. Normally, Saiyans don't have much of a notion of romance or marriage, and apart from the royal family of Vegeta, they aren't particular about blood relationships. Being in among all that, I suppose you could say that the pair of Bardock and Gine were those rare Saiyans who were joined by a bond other than for the purpose of reproduction. Incidentally, Gine, who was not cut out as a warrior, would go on to work at the meat distribution center on planet Vegeta. I love everything about that, but mostly the ending statement.
The meat distribution center. That's like a fanfic waiting to happen.
That's a double pun to me because they go to Planet Meat in the Bardock TV special. It's like, oh, are they distributing the dead bodies? Oh, awful, gross. So that's what she does. Question here is, Toriyama's making up back history for characters that he did not develop himself. And this is not so much a question of, is this a canon? This is more a question of, do you care?
Do I buy it? I don't know. I mean, I really find it humorous that these are questions fans have asked forever, and all of a sudden, Ooishi is involved, who apparently is a quote-unquote super fan.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's taking everything that fans have asked, and she's literally asking him.
If anyone's in a position to ask Toriyama these questions, it's Ooishi.
Yes.
I wonder how much freedom she has. Like, did she actually write those 10 questions, or were 10 questions handed to her from Shueisha staff?
That's what I'm wondering.
We don't really know, but
I just feel like some of them are very specific.
Yeah.
I feel like she had to have come up with that.
I don't know. I could go either way on it.
But also, you kind of, at least I wonder to myself, if her question specifically is, what about Goku's mother, Bardock's wife? And then it turns out, oh, yes, I wrote some extra pages to this chapter and she appears in it. And it's like, okay, so that really almost leads me to someone gave her that question so that they could tie it in.
Right. It's very transparent in how cross-promotional the entire thing is. And I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's
I don't
neat.
either.
If that's what you want to do, great. At the same time, this is another one of those, well, I mean, even Jaco itself was a story that did not ever need to be told. So now we have this new information. And again, it's not a question of, do you believe it? Is this canonical to you? Do you care if it is canonical? It's just, is it cool to know? Sure.
Well, I think part of it too, and maybe I read too much into it, but the very last line in the interview is, I can't tell if it's Ooishi saying it or the editor who compiled all this.
Right, it's not clear.
But it just says, from now on, we won't be able to take our eyes off of the limitlessly expanding world of Dragon Ball.
I mean, we got that with Battle of Gods as well, where it's, oh crap, this world doesn't ever have to end. It's so huge. Aren't there so many awesome, strong guys?
Can you not just feel the marketing spin happening?
Yeah. All right, so Goku has a mom and he's starting to develop some more stuff. Heath, I kind of want to leave it there in terms of Guine's stuff. I'm going to be bringing on the show in the relative near future our old buddy Lance, or Gaffer Tape, or Mysterio Fusion, whatever you want to call him. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm so glad that it just hasn't worked out yet, because now we have all this extra stuff to go into. Lance has written some wonderful stuff in the past about Bardock as a character, and then all the new things that kind of changed our perception of Bardock. Again, if you want to accept things like episode of Bardock. So
yeah, it is really weird if you would go 10 years ago and talk to somebody about Bardock compared to now.
Right.
He's almost like a different character.
Very, very much so. So we're going to talk about that in the future with Lance. Stay tuned for that. There's some other stuff about Frieza here. I don't know how much I really want to get into. Julian, he called it. He's like, I gotta add in a translator note on this thing here because this can be read so many different ways and it's unclear. The statement is, and born from his father alone, still in strong possession of the mutant traits, was Frieza. And then the question there is, does that mean Frieza's race are asexual beings, or does that mean that Frieza is getting his strength only from his father and not from the mother figure?
Because maybe his mother wasn't a mutant,
right,
like his father.
Could have been someone from Planet Meat, for all we know.
See, it all comes full
That's
circle.
my headcanon. Frieza's mom is a Meatian.
Wonder if she was distributed by Guine.
This is getting really gross and really awkward. And then the other thing here, this is another one that kind of got blown out of proportion. It's just a toss-away question, toss-away answer. Ooishi's asking, were we going to see any more Bardock? And Toriyama's like, man, you really love Bardock. That's all right, kind of creepy and weird, Ooishi.
I know,
Let's
I love
move on.
his response. God, you really like him, don't you?
And Ooishi's like, okay, and Vegeta as well. And Toriyama wraps up, this is the final part of his final answer. As for Vegeta, in the event that there's talk of another animated film, then next time, I'd like him to play the main role. Of course, this is nothing more than intentions, and I haven't decided anything at all. This is not there is a new movie and Vegeta's the main character. This is Toriyama saying, if there were to perhaps theoretically be another movie, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Vegeta got to be the main character? And this is no different from what we've already seen in Battle of Gods and some of the stuff that he said surrounding Battle of Gods, where Vegeta got a little chance to shine.
And I'm sure if there is another film, then a lot of the minor characters, maybe he'll finally have his way and get them more
have a chance to
involved.
throw him in there. Yeah. I mean, a really interesting takeaway here is, and we noted this in the update, you go back to Toriyama's interview back in Kanzenshuu 2 talking about Vegeta, where he's like, I didn't really like him, and kind of kept him around out of convenience and necessity.
Yeah, because he said originally he didn't plan on him being there.
Right.
But it just became convenient to have him.
Right. And here we have Toriyama saying, yeah, you know what? I'd kind of like him to take on the main role. And this is not Toriyama being hypocritical. This is simply 20 years later, looking at your work, your stories, your characters, I think, in a new light and being, oh, you know what? He was kind of dope. Let's make him do some stuff.
I've really gotten the feeling lately that with Toriyama, you could so tell from a lot of his interviews that at the end of serialization, I mean, he was entirely burnt out.
Yeah.
I mean, he was done. And all the time, whenever, still to this day, when he does Q&As and commentaries, he'll make these little jabs at, God, I hated serialization.
Yeah.
Oh, if you had wishes from
Totally.
the Dragon Balls, what would you do? Oh, that somebody could do all my work for me. A lot of times you forget that he was purely in it for the money at the beginning. He's like, I needed to put food on the table for my pregnant wife, and yeah, this is what I did. But I feel like he's, as of late, really learned to appreciate the series for what it is. And I think, whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of it falls on Evolution, where he finally realized, oh God, if I'm not involved, this is what they're going to do to my property.
You know, I did not loathe Evolution. I didn't like Evolution, but I'm not standing outside to this day with pitchforks.
I'm with you on that.
At the same time, it really did wonders for Toriyama, just like you said. It made him have that authorial pride for his series. Finally, he's like, you know what? This is my damn series.
And apparently he seems to like working with Ooishi, which is good.
I mean, do we really know? It's all kind of behind the scenes.
Smoke and mirrors, and they never really come out and say certain things, but you assume. Yet he supervises everything. But like you said, a lot of times it's more for, hey, we're going to write on his check that he supervised this. Here you go.
Right. We've talked about that. The original author credit in Japan does not mean that whatever the production you're watching was made by that person. It means that person had the original concept behind the thing that you're watching. So
it's the only reason his name is on GT.
It's exactly the example I was going to use. Is Toriyama is not the original author of GT. He's the original author of Dragon Ball, of which...
And that is an adaptation or a continuation, however you want to think of it. So
just continuing with this interview a little bit, we kind of talked about this earlier already with Gine showing up in the full Jaco in April. If you go back to the super exciting guide stuff, we were convinced that the Makaioshin were going to show up in Battle of Gods, and that was an example of Toriyama creating all this new information, and they did jack with it. So here we have Toriyama creating some new information, which he is actually doing something with. Gine will show up in a product. Is that what you're looking for? Because I kind of feel the way, if you're going to make up this new information, do something with it.
I would agree with that. I mean, we were dead set on Makaios and Makaioshin. I mean, that it's like, seriously, it was right there. And I feel like they poked at us when they released that first trailer.
With a tree and come on.
Yeah. But yeah, I would heartily agree with you on that. I am happy that not only is he going to create a new concept, add to the history and the story of Dragon Ball, but actually implement it so that we can actually see it happen.
Yeah.
Even though she may only appear on like one page.
Right. We don't know any details about that yet. I mean, it sounds to me like there's going to be maybe a bonus chapter that's kind of the end of Planet Vegeta, maybe just what's going on with the rest of the family. Are we going to see where Raditz was, that kind of thing?
I feel like it also could somewhat create like a plot hole, but
again, that's a plot hole only with the Bardock TV special, which Toriyama didn't write. As we've talked about, anything that's on the page of Jaco does not contradict with anything that Toriyama wrote himself in the manga. Like Goku's age, Goku's appearance. Toriyama never explicitly stated that kind of stuff. It only contradicts the Bardock TV special. So,
and all we know about that is he's a fan.
He's a fan of it. Yeah, I mean,
I love his comment about the Bardock special when, was it the Jump DVD came out with the 2 specials on it? And his commentary was included on the disc. And he said, I always liked that. I liked it so much that I incorporated it in my own story, but like everything else, I never would have made it that dark. And it right away, that light bulb goes off and you go, that's like Battle of Gods all over again.
Yeah.
It was really dark, but then he got involved and it became very lighthearted.
So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. I would encourage everyone to read the full Q&A, the full interview. There's a couple other tidbits here, him talking about Bardocks. I don't know if you want to call it a family, because even he puts family in quotes.
I know. I love that. Yes, they are a family. But you do find out that there's no real traditional Saiyan family outside of the royal family.
Yeah, who's kind of doing it for show. Well, here's a question I wanted to ask you. Is Toriyama's adding a lot of new information to the Dragon World here? And just recently, we had him say, with a question of, well, what happened to Tights? His answer was, well, maybe it's better off if I don't add more information here so I don't get myself in trouble. And that means like, so I don't end up contradicting myself and making plot holes. But that's kind of what he's doing here. I don't know. It's because it's real Dragon Ball as opposed to Jaco Dragon Ball. It kind of doesn't matter. And because it wasn't, Bardock wasn't his creation. I don't know. How do you feel about Toriyama adding information to things that weren't even his to begin with?
I'm okay with it, really. It doesn't bother me as much. I guess it's not one of those things I'm going to lose any sleep over.
No, of course not.
But then you also have to take into perspective some of the things he's adding, because episode of Bardock is something that I think we, a lot of times you forget when it actually takes place, which within the timeline of everything. So it's really kind of weird, because where does it fit in? Does some of the stuff apply to that or this or what,
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I just walked around in a circle right there.
I don't know, man. It's a new interview that's always fun to read. I'm glad we can archive this information. That's all I got right now. I mean, we had a whole bunch of backlog questions, but I think we ended up talking about this stuff longer than I anticipated. So I think we'll kind of bring it to a close. Anything else you want to add to our conversation here, man?
Well, the only thing that came to mind when I read this, and you may kill me for mentioning it,
Uh-huh.
but where he talks about that Frieza's race, quote unquote,
Yes.
that the only two that exist are Frieza and his father.
Yeah.
In cold. And it's like, okay, I understand Kula, where you would be like, yeah, well, you know, that's a thing that happened, but I didn't do that, so I'm not really going to include it at this point. Or I could see him forgetting about it.
Yeah.
But then what about Frieza?
I mean, yeah, he made him, but it was in...
But that's also in Neko Majin.
Parody,
right?
so I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing where it's like, all right, these are the two that you made, so according to this world, great. And by not mentioning movie stuff, I don't take that as dismissing the movie stuff. I take that as simply, in the story that I wrote,
exactly,
these are the two that exist.
Okay, that's where I was going with this. I just want to make sure that we're thinking a little bit the same.
Yeah, I don't take that as, man, F the movies, those don't count. I just take it as I wrote these.
Because when I first read that popped into my head, and I'm sure it possibly popped into a lot of
I've already seen that being discussed elsewhere too, so it's definitely on the minds.
But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know, really logically, it makes sense that he would not mention them within the manga. Hey, canon, it's a thing.
Bring it to a close?
I suppose so. My wife's home.
All right, so. Heath, before we wrap up the show for real, we can't forget.
Who's that character?
Last time on the show, this is the little voice clip you heard as suggested to us by A1 Mr. Herms. That clip was indeed Tarble from the Jump Super Anime Tour special, played by A1 Mr. Masakazu Morita, who most recently has played Whis in Battle of Gods. So that was the clip. Another one was it was short, but it was an easy giveaway one due to the sound quality, and really good sounding Kikuchi music usually means that it's the JSAD special. So there you go. So I think off the record, you and I will come to an agreement on what the next voice clip will be. So here it is. And one more time, here's that clip. So there you go. Who's that character? You don't win anything, but if you have thoughts on who you think that character is, who plays him, what scene you think that may be from, you can respond on the forum thread for any episode, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Google+, all that stuff.
Can't they win our respect?
You can, although some of these haven't been all that devious. I mean, when it's a really, really tricky one, like the Lucifer one, that was hard. You get mad respect for that, but I don't know what this one is, so I don't know if they win my respect yet. 3:55, bring it to a close. What you got?
All I have is, when I was transcribing that interview, I got so tired of writing Bardock. Oh my god. In katakana, that is terrible. I felt like every other word was Bardock.
Bardock-san, Bardock-san, Bardock-san.
Anyway.
Shoot that little kid. Jesus. And
that was 3:55. We will not shoot children.
That's awful. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
So thanks to Julian for all his hard work. Thanks to Jake for doing stuff off, protecting us out in the Galactic Space Patrol. Thanks to you, sir, Mr. Heath, Mr. Hujio, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So 3:55, we'll see you next time around for 3:56. We're going to have that Bardock discussion, I think, coming relatively soon. We got a Battle of Z review to do if I can get back to playing the game. And
got a Blu-ray review?
Got a Blu-ray. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I'm kind of feeling
we've had this discussion off the air.
Do we even review it? I kind of want to be a total jerk about it and do the old anime on DVD review standpoint thing where it's like, I disagree with this so much and I'm not even going to dignify it with a review.
Well, I think your review on Twitter was good enough. No, somebody was like, are you going to review this? And your response was, oh, here's my review. It's a thing. It happened. I don't like it. Or it is what it is, whatever you say. I can't
muster any strong enough opinions to even write about it. It's like,
I know.
Yeah, it happened, and here we are, and I just don't care anymore. I care so much about so many other things in Dragon Ball, and yet another cropped release just is not at the top of it. So we got Battle of Z coming, we got the full color comics coming. That I definitely want to talk about. Again, the Bardock episode, and I keep teasing that Broly episode for like a year now.
Just gonna bring that up.
Yep, want to do that. So there's many things we want to do, and every time we can pull Jake away from his space patrol, he comes on with some great in-universe stuff. So many things.
You know, he's been helping Jaco a lot lately.
He has been helping Jaco because Jaco's not very effective on his own. He needs help.
No, he is not.
He's terrible. We done?
I think so. This has been podcast episode 355. We hope you enjoyed our fun discussion about Toriyama's new Q&A. We'll see you guys next time.